Welcome back to Ruffling Feathers, the Youth for Gender Equality's web series where we share real stories from young people across the Caribbean taking on gender issues. I'm Sumirah, a proud Youth for Gender Equality ambassador and someone who's really passionate about telling stories that matter. We'll be diving into how gender and climate change connect, especially here in St. Lucia, where we see the impact up close. For me, it's important to talk about how climate change isn't just an environmental issue, it's a gender issue too. But how exactly is the climate crisis impacting women and girls differently? And what does that mean for our futures, our families, and our freedom? Let's break it down. Climate change is the long-term shift in temperatures and weather patterns, mainly caused by human activities like burning fossil fuels. It leads to more extreme weather events like hurricanes, droughts, floods, and rising sea levels, all of which we are already feeling here in the Caribbean. And when you live in small island developing states like St. Lucia, the vulnerability is even higher. We're more exposed to climate shocks, have fewer resources to recover, and rely heavily on sectors like tourism and agriculture that are climate sensitive. On the other hand, gender refers to the roles, responsibilities, and expectations that society places on people based on whether they're perceived as male, female, or non-binary. And those roles often shape how people experience the impacts of climate change. So what's the connection? Because of gender inequality, women, girls, and gender diverse people often have less access to land, income, education, and decision-making power. That makes it harder for them to adapt or bounce back after climate disasters. Think about how women farmers losing crops without financial backup, or girls missing school when communities are displaced. And in emergency shelters, issues like safety, access to reproductive health care, or even feminine hygiene products often get overlooked. So when we talk about climate change, we have to talk about gender, because justice for the planet means justice for people too. To help us unpack this, we've got stories from around the island that bring the climate conversation closer to home.
And today we'd like to ask you, how has climate change affected you?
Well, it affecting me bad, but we are not yet in the rainy season because the rainy season is January 1st. No, June 1st. But it has affected our crops. Yeah, because of the hot weather, the temperature, the sun coming, the rain coming back on it, and then they are drying. What to do?
Well, when the dry season with us there, we always have a shortage of water.
Okay, and how have you all tried to rectify that situation?
Well, we try to get, irrigation or tanks and fill them up for the dry season. We prepare ourselves for the dry season.
Well, if it has to, we have to get a hurricane, I would suffer with flooding. We're taking it hard because when we have to go on the farm, it's very difficult. If it rains, there's the place is muddy, slippery. You slide, you fall, you get back up. And when you come by the market with the things, when you tell the people a price, they never want to pay.
Enjoy being a female farmer? Is it something you're passionate about?
Yeah, I enjoy it because for the past how many years is that I'm doing? About 40 years.
40?
Yes.
40 years?
Yes.
Yeah, I like my garden, darling. Oh, these two things I like, my God and my garden. And my children too, but I like to do farming. I like my farming.
But it's good that it shows that farming is something that you grow up with.
Yeah, that's what I go to it. All my children went to school on farming. All my children. I built my first house on farming.
That's amazing too, yeah.
One thing that stood out was despite the many challenges, these women couldn't hide their deep love for growing their own food. However, when we asked about their biggest concerns, many shared that passing this passion on to their families and finding help with labor as they grow older remains a significant challenge. It's clear that climate change isn't just about rising temperatures or stronger storms. In St. Lucia, it's hitting right at the heart of our daily lives. That's why local policies must reflect the lived realities of everyone, not just the loudest voices in the room. Gender justice has to be part of the climate conversation if we're serious about building a future that's fair, safe, and sustainable for all of us. Now let's shift gears and bring in a special guest, my Y4GE comrade and colleague, Molinda Japie. Molinda has been part of the Y4GE training program with me, and she has been in the group for some of our interviews as well too. So tell us, Molinda, what interested you in the topic of climate and gender?
I've always been interested in climate change specifically. It's a very big and important topic. It affects a lot of us. It was a new experience seeing things from the perspective of gender, how climate change affects women and men differently. So it was very easy to get interested.
I agree as well, and I know that you were one of the individuals interviewing some of the market vendors. So can you just tell me a little bit about your experience?
Yes, so we went into the Castries market to interview female farmers in particular about the upcoming dry season and hurricane season and how it affects them as women in particular. One thing that came up very often and which was a little surprising was the fact that a lot of these women, they did not have someone to take over after they eventually retire, or if they ever decided to move on to something else. So seeing that things are getting a little bit more difficult due to climate change, it wasn't really their biggest issue, but however, having someone that they can eventually pass that plot of land or that farming business down. Yeah, that's one thing that came up very often actually.
So let me just add, why should young people like ourselves get involved?
I think it's very important for us as young people to get involved with topics like climate change, gender, because although we are not the cause of climate change, we are the ones who will be feeling the majority of its effects. So we are the ones living through it, and we are the ones who will eventually raise another generation through its effects. So at the very least, I think everyone should at least be aware, specifically young people, because we are the ones facing the majority of it. This is a very important aspect of climate change, making more people aware.
Thank you so much, Molinda. That was powerful. Your passion for this topic is really commendable. And that's a wrap for this episode of Ruffling Feathers. Big thank you to our viewers, our sponsors Global Fund for Women, and the Caribbean Feminist Climate Justice Movement, and to you for caring about what matters. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wherever you can get a daily dose of change. And remember, for women and girls, for men and boys, for change, equality starts with us. See you next time.